Welcome, CISSP wannabes. I am Colin Weaver. These are the IT Dojo CISSP questions of the day, where every time I come at you, I bring you 2 questions to help you to get ready for the CISSP exam. So, here comes question number 1. Question number 1 today is, as part of your organization's rollout of smart cards for authentication, you have been tasked with providing a summary report to senior management that details the security controls provided by smart cards. My question to you is, from the options that I'm going to show you, which of them is true and could be included in your report? Go ahead and click on pause, look those over, and when you think you got the right one, click play, we talk through. How about option number 1, that the private keys on the smart card should be marked as exportable so that they can be exported and moved to a new card when appropriate? Oh dear Lord, no. That is pretty much a quintessential notion behind the idea of the keys that are associated with you, is that they are not exportable from the card. They are permanently stored on this card and they're not going anywhere. So definitely not something that you would want to go in and do. How about option number 2? It says that the private key is encrypted with a symmetric key. Negative. The private key and access to the private key in order to activate the card is protected by your PIN, and the private key is stored in a protected area of memory on the smart card, but it is not encrypted with a symmetric key in that space. So that is definitely not something that is true. So don't include that in your report. Option 3 says that smart cards can hold multiple key pairs along with their corresponding certificates, and that is definitely true. You can have multiple different certificates. In fact, it's very common for there to be multiple different certificates with their public keys and then corresponding private keys on an actual smart card. They might be used for the actual verification of the card itself and, of course, the verification of you, but those would be different key pairs for doing that. And then you might have another key pair that's stored on there, say, for digital signature kind of stuff. So, very common. So definitely that is something that could be included in the report, is that smart card supports the storage of multiple different key pairs that have different uses or different purposes. Well, that's our right answer, but let's go ahead and look at the rest of them just to make sure. It says that smart cards don't support asymmetric key lengths shorter than 1024 bits. That's not true. I don't recommend you using keys that are shorter than that. I don't recommend using a 1024-bit key, to be honest. But it is totally doable for a smart card to support, say, a 768-bit or 512-bit key. It would be a very poor choice from a security perspective, because modern computers are fast enough to be able to go in and factor those keys and effectively recover the private key. So you wouldn't want to do that. As of today, the bare minimum in terms of key size is going to be 2048 bits. So I wouldn't use a 1024-bit key, a 768-bit key, or a 512-bit key. But that's not to say that a smart card doesn't support them. In fact, you don't have to look very far back in time to find real-world issues where smart cards were being used by large organizations that had keys that were only 768 bits or 512 bits in length. So, we all kind of look at that and be like, who would do that? Well, lots of people did. So if you're implementing something new, don't. The last answer choice on the list says that if a smart card is lost, the private keys on the card can be easily recovered by an attacker who has a compatible card reader. And that's not true. Compatible card readers are abundant and very inexpensive and darn near freely available, but not quite free. So just having a smart card reader isn't going to help somebody easily crack a private key. If they have physical access to your smart card, they could conceivably recover the private key, but not by any mechanism that's going to be straightforward and simple. So, no, not what we're looking for there. Let's move on to question number 2. I've been on a smart card binge lately. In response to the report that you provided to senior management in the previous question, you've been asked to provide more information on how the keys that are stored on a smart card are used to actually authenticate the user. Given the answer choices that I'm going to show you, what I want to know is which of them is the best answer. So take a look at those options, think it through. When you think you got the right answer, if you paused it, click play again. I'll tell you all about it. Choice number 1 says your smart card is going to create a hash of the user certificate and then send that to the computer. And that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Okay, so you're not going to take your own certificate and then hash it and then just send the hash to the computer and be like, hey, this proves I'm me, because it proves absolutely nothing. All that hashing your own certificate and sending it to the computer proves you can do is hash your own certificate and send it to the computer. It doesn't prove anything about who you are. Okay, so negative. Next option on the list says that the computer is going to validate the user's certificate using standard PKI validation techniques. That's true. But does that authenticate the user? Okay. No. The question asked you how these keys are going to be used to authenticate the user. This is very much a true statement that when the certificate is sent from the card to the computer who's doing in the business of authenticating you, that computer wants to validate that the certificate is still within its validity period, that the name on it matches the person who's logging in, and that it was issued by a trusted authority, and that the certificate hasn't been revoked. All those things are things that it's going to want to verify, which is part of the whole PKI standard mechanisms for validation. But after all those things are done, the computer still does not believe that you are who you claim to be. They simply believe that the person who is the holder of the private key is the person who's named on this certificate. They don't know if that's you yet. So no, you are not authenticated yet. So this is, even though this is a true statement, it's not the right answer. Next choice on the list says that the Smartcard PIN, which only you know, unlocks access to the user's certificate. And that's a little bit technical and sort of nuanced, sorry. But no, that is not true. The certificate is actually accessible even if the PIN is not entered. What unlocks a smart card and provides access to the private key, or private keys, plural, is your PIN. But the actual certificate can be read even if the user doesn't put in their PIN number. So subtle, but not the right answer. That leaves us with the last option, which is very much the right answer, and it says that the private key is used to encrypt a challenge that was issued by the computer that you're logging into, and that is true. So when you provide your certificate, which includes your public key, the system is going to validate that that certificate is valid. It's then going to issue you a challenge, some say string of text that it wants you to do something with, and so you take your private key and encrypt that string, and then you send that encrypted string back to the computer, and then the computer uses the public key that's in the certificate, which it now has faith in, to recover that data. And the fact that it can do that means that you hold the private key, or the private key is on that smart card, and therefore the computer believes that you are the person who's named on the certificate, so therefore you are authenticated. Okay, so that is very much the correct answer for that. Now, that's not anything fancy or new. That's the same kind of stuff that we use certificates for all the time, or subtle little variations within there. Why do we use asymmetric cryptography for so much of this stuff? In the cases of authentication and non-repudiation, it's prove that you have the private key that corresponds to this public key, and a smart card deployment is no different. That's 2. Bye, Felicia.